but we've also heard, and where I also agree with, is we want to get people before cancer, what we can do for prevention. And so all these issues of communication, technology with disruption, I look at it as enhancement, because we do need to enhance and use it to benefit. Cost effectiveness, that all brings it together. Implementation, de-implementation, test characteristics, it's very complex. And where do we put this into the larger healthcare systems? I thought where I was coming from too, and I said at the very beginning, not one size fits all. So while the Blue Ribbon panel may have thought they were wanting to give a blueprint, I think what's very evident here that as architects would do, there's a lot of modifications, and there's a lot of testing of what needs to be done in different settings for different populations and overall goals. So I think we have a very interesting thing to do to learn from what was discussed here, how we could begin to implement that. It looks pretty clear, and that's been around for 12 years, as Dave Chambers was saying, that calling for universal testing, that's one approach. It's not going to get us to where we really want to be or where we can be. So I'm skipping through these because these were all just brought up. And I think what we need to do now, these are our next steps. We need to digest, need to absorb, and we need to process in terms of what we can do now to craft a variety of opportunities to enhance and expand the identification and care of high-risk populations. A lot of basic tenets of screening. I used to give the EPI-1 lecture in screening. You don't screen unless you're going to have follow-up care. You know, that's the care coordination. You have to have that accessible. Otherwise, the harm is that you do identify people with the conditions that you can't, that they live with that anxiety with nothing to do. That's a basic tenet. The other issue was not brought up as succinctly as this, but selective screening. All these issues that we're talking about get to selective screening. The best test, whatever you have, when you are doing selective screening, your program sensitivity diminishes, and that affects your cost and cost effectiveness. So all these concepts really do tie in this setting, and we have to think carefully about the science of implementation, looking at a variety of best practices, what research is needed to fill in these gaps. We just heard, again, different lab approaches, and that they're all over the map in terms of sensitivity. So that's actually, we'd like to have a really good reproducible lab that's accurate. Prevention ethics have to be taken into account. That discussion about registration I thought was fantastic and carefully needs to be considered. I will point out, as some did, that there are existing opportunities now. There's no reason not to forward to have somebody who has a grant pending. There are program announcements out there to start answering some of these gaps that have been identified here. The webinar will exist for review. There will be a summary coming out from this, but I think there's lots of opportunities here to fill in some of those gaps and to see how we would go about implementing and what that architecture will be. So I don't want to belabor the point. It has been a wonderful conference. I think if there are any last questions, comments, Assad and I would certainly welcome them as we close this, but I would like to thank the steering committee for all their help, for Christy and Anike and all the other staff who helped us with this, ICF for supporting the meeting. I think everything went very smoothly. The speakers, who you're great about getting your points across, and the great discussion that was here, I think that's fantastic. It has given us a lot of good food to digest and to process here and come up with what we hope will move this field forward. So without further ado, I think any other last-minute questions, comments? Thank you all so much for a great conference and for your participation. Thank you.